Good afternoon. Welcome to the West Side Story. I'm your host, John Casey. Please feel free to like and subscribe. It allows us to produce more content. Really, very little in the police report this week. We still see a lot of domestic violence issues, but I'm afraid those are with us for a while. Library continues to produce excellent content, and that's well worth checking out. I had originally planned to report on a dog named Maverick at the shelter during this report. However, Maverick's been adopted. He was a husky, and they found him roaming around in the streets of Sunnyvale and took him to the shelter. And they had a little problem because Maverick is extremely intelligent. They locked him in the appropriate area, came back a little while later, and he'd gotten out. Well, that's not quite possible. The dog knew how to unlock locked doors. This guy's a real treat. Fortunately for him, maybe not so for my report, the dog has been adopted and has found a happy home and has actually now got a husky sister, and they seem to be doing very, very well. Sad to report that Callie, who we reported on 2 weeks ago, is still at the shelter. So I encourage you, if you're looking for an animal, don't go to a breeder. Go to the Humane Society of Santa Clara Valley. They're out on Ames and Milpitas, out in the area of Elmwood, and see them. They've got a wonderful, wonderful collection. Going back to having a fact checker this week, I want to touch on the decision of the U.S. Supreme Court in the case of Dobbs versus the Jackson Women's Health Organization. Essentially, this is a decision that overturned the Roe versus Wade decision of 1972. It's problematic in a couple of reasons because people keep saying the Supreme Court outlawed abortion. No, they didn't. What they said, and this is in keeping with precedent, is that that kind of a decision belongs at the state level. People at the state level should have the right to make that decision, not the federal government. And I'm sure you've seen all the protests that happened over the weekend and all the many things. One of the ones that made me laugh the most was to see protests in states that do allow abortions. There were protests in both Los Angeles and San Francisco, yet California has about the most liberal abortion rules anywhere. So I'm not quite sure why they feel the need to protest, but they did. And again, they're exercising their First Amendment rights, so God bless them. There's been this constant question of, well, the Supreme Court can't change a standard or can't change they call it stare decisis, let decided matters stand. They can't change. Well, actually they can, and probably the best known case of that was in 1896, a case called Plessy versus Ferguson. The court actually determined that separate but equal was legal. Now, I think we all can say today that wasn't too good an idea. However, that was the decision in 1896, and it actually stood until 1954 when another case was brought to the court, Brown versus Topeka Board of Education of Topeka, and in 54, what the court ruled was that separate is inherently unequal. And as a matter of fact said, no, you can't keep this little black girl from going to the white school. Again, very tumultuous, many people yelling and screaming and marches and all of that. At the time, the president was Eisenhower, Dwight Eisenhower, and he decided that this really had gotten way out of hand. So first he ordered the Department of Justice to escort the girl to school, and he called up the troops. Was there a problem? He was going to make sure that the girl got to go to school. That story has kind of a happy ending in that she went on and got 2 college degrees and has done very well in life. Probably retired now. She was in 3rd grade in 54. The other thing that has been said multiple times, and it's completely false, was that the Supreme Court attacked several other very popular gay rights issues. By no means did they touch same-sex marriage. By no means did they touch acts between consenting adults. None of those things. Anybody who says they were just hasn't read the decision. As a matter of fact, it's kind of funny. The case that determined same-sex marriages was a constitutional right was Obergefell versus Hodges. And the court ruled that just because two men or two women wanted to get married, there was no reason to stop them. The state had no vested interest in saying they couldn't do that. And interestingly, the decision itself actually references Obergefell. And you may wonder where I got all this information. The entire text of the decision is up on the Supreme Court's website. And if you have a little time, I suggest you go read it. It is a very lengthy, very well documented decision. You could go cross-eyed trying to read it, but if you do have the time, I suggest you do check it out. That's about it for this week. Thank you for joining me, and please like and subscribe, and stay safe.